She enters the wrong room on a cruise and falls asleep. And when she wakes up, she has a surprise of finding the man who abandoned her in the past. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Snow fell relentlessly over Boston, blanketing the city in white as Amelia Walker stood before the small mirror in her rented room. The modest wedding dress she'd purchased with a year's worth of savings hugged her slim figure, the simple beading catching the dim light. At 23, the young black woman from Roxbury was about to marry into one of Boston's wealthiest families, a fairy tale that had begun when she was serving champagne at a charity event in the Fairmont CP Play Plaza Hotel, where she worked as a chambermaid. "You look beautiful," said Sophia, her friend and fellow chambermaid, adjusting the small veil. "I still can't believe you're marrying Ethan Grayson." The Ethan Grayson. Amelia smiled, touching her still flat stomach. 6 weeks pregnant and she hadn't told him yet. She'd planned to share the news tonight after they were officially husband and wife. "He's just Ethan to me," she said. Though the flutter in her stomach wasn't just morning sickness, it was the lingering disbelief that someone like him had chosen someone like her. A wave of nausea suddenly washed over her and she closed her eyes, breathing deeply. "You okay?" Sophia asked, concerned. "Nervous," Amelia lied, swallowing hard. The morning sickness had been getting worse, but she was determined not to let it ruin her special day. Her mind drifted back to their first meeting. She had been working an exclusive charity gala at the Fairmont, carrying a tray of champagne flutes when Ethan Grayson approached, tall, confident, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through her uniform to the woman beneath. "You're the only person in this room who looks genuinely happy to be here," he had said, taking a glass from her tray. "Just doing my job, sir," she had replied, professional as always. "No, it's more than that. There's a light in your eyes. I'm Ethan, by the way, Ethan Grayson." As if she didn't know. As if everyone in Boston didn't know the Grayson family and their real estate empire. That conversation had led to coffee the next day, then dinner the following week. A whirlwind romance that had scandalized Boston society and infuriated his family, particularly his mother, Margaret Grayson, who had made her disapproval crystal clear from the beginning. Amelia glanced at the clock, 10:30. The ceremony at Trinity Church was set for 11:00. Her small contingent of guests, college friends, and coworkers would already be arriving. Ethan had insisted on the grand venue despite his family's reluctance to attend. "I should go check if the car is here," Sophia said, squeezing her hand before slipping out of the room. Alone, Amelia adjusted her veil once more. Heart racing. In just an hour she would be Mrs. Grayson, a thought both thrilling and terrifying. She had deferred her last year at the University of Massachusetts, where she studied tourism on a partial scholarship to plan the wedding. After today, with Ethan's support, she could finish her degree without working 2 jobs. A sharp knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "The car is here," she called, gathering her small bouquet of white roses. Instead of Sophia, a young man in a courier uniform appeared holding an envelope. "Delivery for Amelia Walker." "That's me," she said, confused. It wasn't unusual for last-minute deliveries on wedding days, but something in the courier's uncomfortable expression made her stomach clench. He handed her the envelope and quickly departed. Amelia's name was handwritten on the front in Ethan's distinctive script. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a folded note and something small and hard. As she unfolded the paper, her engagement ring fell out, landing on the worn carpet with a soft thud. The note was brief, written in hurried letters. "I can't risk my future for someone who will never be accepted in my world. Goodbye." Amelia read the words once, twice, 3 times, trying to make sense of them. The room seemed to tilt around her as the reality sank in. Ethan wasn't coming. There would be no wedding, no happily ever after. Her first instinct was to call him. With shaking fingers, she dialed his number, which went straight to voicemail. She tried his office. "Grayson Industries, how may I direct your call?" came the receptionist's practiced voice. "I need to speak with Ethan. It's urgent. It's Amelia." A pause. "I'm sorry, Miss Walker, but Mr. Grayson is unavailable and has instructed that your number be removed from his contacts list." "What? No, there must be some mistake. Please, I need to. I'm sorry, Miss Walker. Goodbye." The line went dead. Amelia stared at her phone. Disbelief tears blurring her vision. This couldn't be happening, not today. Not when their guests were already seated in the church. Not when she was carrying his child. In a daze, she found herself in a taxi heading to Trinity Church, still in her wedding dress, clutching the cruel note. She had to see for herself, had to confirm that this nightmare was real. The majestic church loomed ahead, its stone facade dusted with snow. Amelia's small group of guests huddled near the entrance, confusion on their faces. There was no sign of Ethan or any of the Halts. Amelia, her college roommate, rushed over. What's happening? No one from his side is here. Wordlessly, Amelia handed her the note. As her friend read it, gasps and murmurs spread through the small gathering. That bastard, someone muttered. I'm so sorry, honey, said another, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. The reality hit her like a physical blow. She had been abandoned at the altar, discarded by the man who had promised to love her forever. Humiliation burned hotter than the heartbreak. I need to go, she whispered, stumbling back toward the taxi. Somehow she found herself back at the Fairmont, seeking refuge in the employee break room where sympathetic coworkers tried to comfort her. The wedding dress that had made her feel like a princess now felt like a costume, a cruel joke. Is there someone we can call? Asked her supervisor, concern etched on her face. Family. Amelia shook her head. Her relationship with her own family had become strained when she started dating Ethan. They had warned her that a rich white man would only use her, and her defiant response had created a rift that hadn't healed. Hours passed in a blur of tears and numbness. As evening fell, a commotion outside the break room caught her attention. You can't go in there, someone protested. I most certainly can, replied a cold, commanding voice that Amelia recognized immediately. Margaret Grayson swept into the room. Elegant in a tailored gray suit, her silver-streaked hair perfectly styled. The other employees quickly made themselves scarce, leaving Amelia alone with Damon's mother. You should be grateful he realized his mistake before making the biggest blunder of his life, Margaret said without preamble, her gaze taking in Amelia's tear-stained face and rumpled wedding dress. Why are you here? Amelia asked, her viscera from crying. To ensure there are no misunderstandings. Margaret placed an envelope on the small table. They told me you're nothing but an ambitious black girl trying to climb socially through my son. Now he understands that, and you should too. The envelope contained a check with so many zeros that Amelia's vision blurred again. I don't want your money, she said, pushing it away. Don't be foolish, girl. Take it and disappear from my son's life. It's more than generous. As soon as Margaret left, Amelia tore the check into tiny pieces, watching them fluttered to the floor like confetti, a mockery of the celebration that should have been. The next morning, still numb with shock, Amelia was summoned to the hotel manager's office. I'm afraid we have to let you go, Miss Walker, he said, not meeting her eyes. We've received concerns about your professional conduct. What concerns? She asked, though she already knew the answer. It's been suggested that staff who pursue hotel guests don't align with the Fairmont standards. Another blow. The Halts were systematically dismantling her life piece by piece. That afternoon, she received an email from the university housing office. Her subsidized dorm placement had been revoked due to administrative reconsideration. Without her job at the Fairmont, she couldn't afford the regular housing fees, let alone her tuition for the coming semester. In less than 48 hours, Amelia had lost her fiancé, her job, and her housing. With minimal savings and nowhere to go, she found herself sitting on a park bench in Boston Common. As darkness fell, snow settling on her shoulders, her hand drifted to her still flat stomach, where Ethan's child grew, unaware of the chaos surrounding its existence. Sitting on that cold Boston bench, Amelia couldn't possibly imagine that 15 years later she would be commanding a billion-dollar empire of her own creation, while the man who had discarded her would be begging for a second chance. The raw sting of humiliation burned through Amelia's numbness as she huddled on the park bench, snowflakes gathering on her shoulders. One day earlier, she had been a bride preparing for her wedding. Now she was effectively homeless, jobless, and carrying a child whose father had cried discarded her. The reality of her situation crashed over her in waves, each one threatening to pull her under completely. With stiff fingers, she pulled out her phone and called the only person who might take her in. Her college friend, Dina, answered on the third ring. "Amelia, are you okay?" "Heard what happened?" "I need a place to stay," Amelia said, her voice hollow. "Just for a few days until I figure things out." 3 hours later, she was curled up on Dina's worn sofa in a cramped Dorchester apartment, staring at the ceiling, trying to process how her life had shattered so completely. Sleep eventually claimed her, but morning brought a violent awakening as she bolted upright and barely made it to the bathroom before emptying the meager contents of her stomach. "Food. Poisoning?" Dina asked from the doorway, concern etched on her face. Amelia rinsed her mouth, avoiding her friend's eyes in the mirror. "I don't think so." The next morning brought the same violent nausea and the one after that. By the fourth day on Dina's couch, Amelia could no longer deny what her body was telling her. She found herself standing in a small pharmacy, staring at the rows of pregnancy tests, a clerk eyeing her with barely disguised pity. "First time?" the middle-aged woman asked as she rang up the purchase. Amelia nodded mutely, clutching the small paper bag as if it contained her entire future. In Dina's tiny bathroom, the 2 pink lines appeared within seconds, confirming what she already knew. 6 weeks pregnant with Ethan Grayson's child. She sank to the cold tile floor, test still in hand, tears streaming down her face. "What am I going to do?" she whispered to the empty room. After 2 days of near catatonic shock, Amelia's natural determination began to reassert itself. Damon needed to know about the baby. Whatever his feelings about her, this child was his responsibility too. She tried calling his personal cell again, still blocked. His office line connected, but receptionists consistently refused to put her through. "Please," she begged on her 6th attempt. "Just tell him it's about our baby. I'm pregnant with Ethan's child." "I'll pass along the message," the receptionist said, her tone making it clear no such thing would happen. 2 days later, after leaving, similar messages at every Grayson Industries number she could find, Amelia finally received a response, but not the one she had hoped for. "Ethan, you got my messages?" she asked hopefully when her phone rang with an unknown number. "Ms. Walker, this is Gregory Pearson from Winthrop, Pearson and Associates. I represent the Grayson family." The attorney's voice was professionally detached. "I'd like to meet with you regarding the claims you've been making to my client's staff." They met the following day at a small cafe where Amelia had recently started waitressing. The attorney, a gay-haired man in an expensive suit, looked distinctly uncomfortable in the modest establishment. "The Grayson family would like to resolve this matter discreetly," he said, sliding a thick envelope across the table. Inside was a non-disclosure agreement and a check with more zeros than Amelia had ever seen in her life. "I don't want hush money," she said, pushing it back toward him. "I want Ethan to know about his child." Pearson's expression didn't change. "Mr. Grayson is aware of your claim and does not believe the child is his." "What?" The word came out as a strangled whisper. "Let's be frank, Miss Walker. Your background in Roxbury doesn't help your credibility in this situation. The timing of this pregnancy claim coming directly after the canceled wedding suggests opportunism rather than coincidence." Amelia's hands trembled with rage. "I worked my way through college. I have a nearly completed degree. I've never asked Ethan for a penny. And yet here we are discussing a substantial financial settlement." The attorney's smile never reached his eyes. "The Halts are prepared to be generous, but they will not tolerate extortion attempts. Get out." Amelia hissed loud enough that nearby customers turned to stare. "Tell Ethan I don't want his money. I want him to acknowledge his child." 2 weeks later, Amelia was clearing tables when a newspaper left by a customer caught her eye. There on the society page was a photo of Ethan at a charity gala, his arm around a slender blonde woman. The caption read, "Grayson Industries heir Ethan Grayson with fiancée Vanessa Kabat at the Children's Hospital benefit. The union of 2 Boston dynasties promises to revolutionize New England's real estate market." The tray of dirty dishes clattered to the floor as Amelia stared at the image. Less than a month after abandoning her at the altar, Damon was already engaged to someone else, someone from his world, someone his mother would approve of. That night, lying on Dina's couch, Amelia felt something she hadn't experienced since the wedding day. a flutter of movement in her womb, the first tangible sign of the life growing inside her. Placing her hand over the small bump that had begun to form, she made a promise. "You'll never need him," she whispered fiercely. "I promise we'll build something so magnificent that one day he'll bitterly regret discarding us." By her 5th month of pregnancy, Amelia's situation had grown desperate. Dina, struggling with her own financial problems, couldn't support an additional person indefinitely. With her small waitressing salary barely covering food, Amelia found herself at a Southend women's shelter, a place she had once volunteered during college, now seeking a bed for herself. "First night's always the hardest," said an older woman named Mariana, showing Amelia to a narrow cot in a room shared with 4 other women. "You'll get used to the noise." Amelia lay awake that night, her growing belly making it difficult to find a comfortable position on the thin mattress. Around her, women snored, cried in their sleep, or tiptoed to the communal bathroom. This was not where she had imagined herself at 23, pregnant, abandoned, and homeless. The shelter's caseworker helped her apply for SNAP benefits, food stamps, a process that required swallowing every last bit of her pride. Standing in line at the government office, surrounded by others in desperate circumstances, Amelia kept her head high despite the burning shame. "M. Walker," the intake worker called. "Your application has been approved." The plastic benefit card felt like both a lifeline and a mark of failure in her hand. 7 months into her pregnancy, Amelia sat in the communal room of the shelter, absently flipping through job listings in the newspaper, when Mariana sat beside her. "My niece works for a travel agency downtown, Sunshine Cruises. They need an administrative assistant. Owner is a Brazilian-American guy named Victor Santos." Amelia looked up skeptically. "I'm 7 months pregnant. Nobody's hearing me." "Victor built his business from nothing after immigrating here. He understands struggle. Just go talk to him." The next day, Amelia put on her Leaston maternity dress and made her way to the small office in downtown Crossing. Sunshine Cruises occupied a modest storefront with bright yellow signage and posters of Caribbean beaches in the windows. Victor Santos, a stocky man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and a warm smile, looked up from his desk as she entered. "You must be Amelia," Mariana called about you. "Yes, sir." She stood straighter, trying to project confidence despite her obvious pregnancy. "I'm interested in the administrative assistant position." Victor gestured to her belly with a friendly nod. "When are you due?" "About 2 months, but I can work right up until." Sit," he interrupted, pointing to a chair. "Tell me about your experience." For the next half hour, Amelia outlined her nearly completed tourism degree, her customer service background, and her organizational skills. She deliberately omitted any mention of the halts or her current living situation. Victor listened intently, asking occasional questions. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. "I built this company from scratch after coming to America with nothing but a suitcase and broken English," he said. "I recognize determination when I see it." He smiled. "When can you start?" 2 weeks later, Amelia had organized Victor's chaotic filing system, created efficient spreadsheets for client tracking, and impressed him with her knowledge of cruise destinations. During lunch breaks, she studied her university textbooks, determined to complete her degree despite everything. "Your education isn't optional," Victor told her one day, catching her with a tourism management book. "It's mandatory. We'll make it work with your schedule after the baby comes." When Amelia mentioned she was staying at a shelter, Victor helped her find a small, affordable apartment in Dorchester. "Consider it an advance on your salary," he said when she protested. "You can pay it back slowly." In the evenings, Amelia prepared for the bobbies, painting the walls of the small second bedroom herself and furnishing it with second-hand cribs and a rocking chair found at a thrift store. Each improvement to the modest apartment felt like a small victory against the despair that constantly threatened to engulf her. On August 15th, 2 weeks before her due date, Amelia was filing cruise manifests when the first contraction hit. Victor drove her to the hospital himself, assuring her not to worry about work. 12 hours later, she held her twins for the first time, a boy and a girl with light brown skin and startlingly familiar blue eyes. Ethan's eyes. The realization hit her like a physical blow. What will you name them?" The nurse asked. Amelia looked down at the Bobbies in her arms, Liam and Isla Walker. That first night in her small apartment with the newborns was a blur of exhaustion, fear, and determination. The twins cried in shifts, ensuring she got no sleep. By dawn, Amelia was simultaneously feeding Isla while rocking Liam's bassinet with her foot, tears of fatigue streaming down her face. "We're just us three against the world," she whispered to her children as the first light of morning filtered through. The thin curtains. The impossible routine quickly established itself. Waking at 5, preparing the twins, dropping them at a community daycare, working all day, picking them up, studying at night while they slept, only to begin again a few hours later when their hungry cries pierced the darkness. 9 months after the twins' birth, Amelia walked across the stage at her university graduation. Liam and Isla balanced on her hip as she accepted her diploma. Victor Santos stood in the audience applauding louder than anyone. That night, as she put her Bobbies to bed in their small room decorated with paper stars and second-hand stuffed animals, Amelia renewed the promise she'd made months earlier. "One day we'll be so successful that he'll regret having abandoned us," she whispered, kissing each small forehead. The twins blinked up at her with those hauntingly familiar blue eyes, unaware that they would one day be the living proof of their father's greatest mistake. While rocking her children to sleep in her small apartment, Amelia couldn't possibly imagine that her first step as an administrative assistant in a modest agency would be the beginning of a journey that would transform her into the Queen of the Seas, commanding luxury ships on which the global elite would pay fortunes to embark. While rocking her children to sleep in her small apartment, Amelia couldn't possibly imagine that her first step as an administrative assistant in a modest agency would be the beginning of a journey that would transform her into the Queen of the Seas. Yet, as months passed at Sunshine Cruises, she found herself thriving despite the exhaustion of single motherhood. "These filing systems are from the last century," she told Victor one afternoon, 6 months after starting the job. The twins were now approaching their first birthday, growing more active and demanding by the day. Victor chuckled, watching her reorganize yet another cabinet. "Before you came, I knew where everything was, somewhere in that pile. And now you know exactly where everything is," Amelia replied. "And how many bookings we have for each cruise line and which seasons are most profitable." She had transformed the small agency's operations, implementing digital systems she'd learned about in her tourism courses. Though her official title remained administrative assistant, she had become Victor's right hand, taking on increasing responsibility as her confidence grew. The modest apartment in Dorchester had gradually become a home. Second-hand furniture filled the space, and colorful educational toys, many found at thrift stores, littered the living room floor. On the refrigerator, Amelia had posted a handwritten budget, every dollar accounted for. There was never enough, but they were surviving. When the twins turned 15 months old, Victor approached her with an unexpected proposition. "We need someone to accompany the Bermuda group next month," he said casually one morning. The regular guide broke her leg. Amelia looked up from her computer. "You want me to go? You know the itinerary better than anyone. Plus, you speak some Spanish now, and many of our clients are from Puerto Rico." "But the twins, bring them," Victor said as if it were the most natural solution. "We'll work it out with the cruise line. Consider it a training opportunity." That first trip changed everything. Despite the logistical challenges of traveling with toddlers, Amelia discovered she had a natural talent for guiding. The clients, mostly retirees, adored the twins, who became unofficial mascots of the tour. More importantly, she saw firsthand the inefficiencies and missed opportunities in standard cruise packages. "People want authentic experiences, not just another buffet and generic shore excursion," she told Victor upon her return. "I have ideas for how we could offer something different." By the time the twins were 2, Amelia had been promoted to junior tour guide, accompanying groups throughout the Caribbean. Victor had arranged for her tiny office to have a play area where the twins could stay when daycare was closed. It wasn't ideal, but they made it work. One morning, Amelia was preparing breakfast when Isla looked up at her with those piercing blue eyes, Ethan's eyes, and asked the question Amelia had been dreading. "Where's our daddy?" Liam, always in sync with his sister, stopped playing with his cereal to listen. Amelia knelt beside them, choosing her words carefully. "Your daddy isn't with us. Some daddies can't stay with their families." "Why not?" Liam persisted. "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that are hard to understand," she said, smoothing his curly hair. "But we have each other and we have Uncle Victor, and we're going to be just fine." That night, after tucking the twins into their small beds decorated with paper stars, Amelia allowed herself a rare moment of self-pity. She pulled out the Boston Globe from 3 weeks earlier, which she'd hidden in her drawer. There in the society pages was a photo of Ethan and Vanessa Grayson at their lavish wedding reception. They looked perfect together, both blonde, both from old money, both belonging to a world that had rejected Amelia. "He made his choice," she whispered, tearing the page into tiny pieces and letting them fall into the trash. "And I'm making mine." When the twins turned 3, a significant opportunity arose. A private school in Cambridge offered a limited number of need-based scholarships for their early childhood program. The competition was fierce, but Amelia prepared meticulously for the twins' assessment and her parent interview. "Mrs. Walker," the admissions director began. Ms. Amelia corrected gently. "I apologize, Ms. Walker. Your children's test results are quite remarkable, particularly Liam's mathematical aptitude and Isla's verbal skills. They're well above age-level expectations." 2 weeks later, the acceptance letters arrived. Amelia wept with joy when she opened them, knowing what this meant for her children's future. "We did it," she told the twins, who celebrated by jumping on the second-hand couch until one of the springs broke. At the school's orientation, Amelia felt acutely out of place among the wealthy parents in designer clothes. She had spent hours selecting her outfit, the one professional suit she owned, purchased at a consignment store for interviews. The other mothers chatted about vacation homes and household staff, while Amelia silently calculated how many extra tours she would need to guide to afford the twins' school. Suprise, a blonde woman in a cashmere sweater, approached her. "Which one is yours?" Amelia pointed to where Liam and Isla were intently building a block tower together. "The twins." "Oh, the scholarship children, how lovely." The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. "They certainly look interesting." "Mixed, aren't they?" Amelia straightened her spine. "They're perfect is what they are." By the time the twins were 4, Amelia had been promoted to senior tour guide, specializing in luxury cruise packages. Her client reviews consistently mentioned her personalized approach and encyclopedic knowledge of destinations. The twins, now thriving in their preschool program, often accompanied her during school breaks, charming wealthy clients with their precocious intelligence. It was during one such trip that Amelia first noticed Liam's extraordinary ability with numbers. While playing a simple counting game on deck, the 4-year-old casually corrected an error in a passenger's crossword puzzle that involved a complex mathematical equation. "Your son is gifted," the passenger, a retired mathematics professor, told her in amazement. "He solved that in seconds. I've been working on it for half an hour." Meanwhile, Isla was showing equally remarkable language acquisition, picking up phrases in Spanish, French, and even a bit of Portuguese from Victor with effortless ease. "They're going to have every opportunity I didn't," Amelia told Victor one evening as they closed the office. The twins were asleep on the small sofa in the corner, exhausted from a day of helping to sort brochures, a game Amelia had invented to keep them occupied. Victor nodded thoughtfully. "You know, you're wasted as just a tour guide. These ideas you have for exclusive experiences, they could be something special." "Maybe someday," she replied, gathering the sleeping children. "Right now, I'm just focused on keeping us afloat." But someday arrived sooner than expected. The morning of the twins' FTH birthday. Amelia was preparing their special breakfast when her phone rang. It was Victor, his voice unusually serious. "Remember that wealthy couple from New York you guided last month? The ones you took to that local restaurant in St. Lucia that wasn't on the official itinerary? The Wilsons. Did they complain?" Amelia's stomach clenched with worry. "Quite the opposite. Mr. Wilson wants to meet with you today. He says it's about a business opportunity. Later that afternoon, while the twins were at a birthday play date arranged by a sympathetic teacher, Amelia sat across from Samuel Wilson in an upscale Boston restaurant, feeling completely out of place. "What you offered us wasn't just a tour," Wilson said, stirring his coffee. "It was an experience, authentic, personal, unique. There's a huge market for that level of service among people who can afford it." Amelia nodded cautiously. "I've always thought standard cruise packages miss opportunities for truly meaningful connections with destinations." "Exactly." Wilson leaned forward. "I'm an angel investor. I find promising ideas and help them grow. And I think you have something special." She blinked, uncertain she'd heard correctly. "Me? I'm prepared to invest $500,000 to launch Walker exclusive experiences." He slid a folder across the table. "Take this home. Review it. I'm talking about making you the CEO of your own company." That night after the twins' birthday celebration, a small party with homemade cake and carefully wrapped secondhand gifts, Amelia sat at her tiny kitchen table reviewing Wilson's proposal. Her hands trembled as she calculated risks against potential rewards. On one hand, security, her current salary, the known routine. On the other, possibility, independence, the chance to build something that truly belonged to her and her children. As dawn broke, she looked in on the sleeping twins. Liam's arm was flung protectively over his sister, even in sleep. On their bookshelf sat the paper stars she'd made when they were Bobbies, now joined by awards from their preschool. Liam for mathematics, Isla for storytelling. 2 days later, she signed the initial documents for Walker exclusive experiences, her signature wobbling slightly with the magnitude of the moment. That evening, she toasted with the twins using plastic cups filled with grape juice. "What are we celebrating, Mommy?" Isla asked, giggling as the juice stained her upper lip purple. "The future," Amelia replied, her heart full of cautious hope. "Our future." While raising her plastic cup in that modest toast with her 3-year-old twins, Amelia couldn't imagine that within 5 years she would be signing a purchase contract for her first own cruise ship, initiating a fleet that would revolutionize the concept of luxury tourism. While raising her plastic cup in that modest toast with her 5-year-old twins, Amelia couldn't imagine that within 5 years she would be signing a purchase contract for her first own cruise ship. Yet 3 years later, at 29, she stood on the deck of the Caribbean. Princess, her name tag reading Amelia Walker, Senior Tour Director, Sunshine Cruises, watching her 8-year-old twins charm a group of wealthy retirees. Ms. Walker called Mrs. Whitmore, a diamond and encrusted woman in her 70s. "Your children are absolutely delightful. Liam just explained the ship's navigation system to my husband in terms even he could understand." Amelia smiled, watching Liam enthusiastically point out features on the bridge to the retired banker. Nearby, Isla was conversing in elementary Spanish with a couple from Madrid, her pronunciation remarkably precise for a child her age. "They make everything more interesting," Amelia agreed, straightening her professional uniform, a vast improvement from the chambermaid outfit she'd worn at the Fairmont, but still bearing the Sunshine Cruises logo rather than her own name. As the group dispersed for afternoon activities, Mrs. Whitmore lingered, adjusting her designer sunglasses. "Every year it's the same thing. Same ports, same excursions, same generic experiences, except when you're guiding," she added with a meaningful look. "You somehow make it all feel special." The comment lodged in Amelia's mind as she shepherded the twins to their cabin for a brief rest before the evening activities. Their small quarters were cramped but efficient, a staff cabin that Victor had arranged to be exclusively theirs during tour. Toys and books were neatly stacked in corners, evidence of a life lived partially at sea. "Mommy, can we go to that local restaurant again tonight?" Isla asked, referring to a family-owned establishment in St. Thomas that wasn't on any official cruise itinerary. "That's not on the schedule, sweetie," Amelia replied, tucking them in for short naps. "But last time you took the Goldstein there and they said it was the best meal of their trip," Liam pointed out. Later that evening, after settling the twins with the cruise line's child care service, Amelia made an impulsive decision, gathering a small Group of interested passengers from her tour, those who had expressed boredom with the standard offerings. She arranged for a local taxi driver she knew to take them to the restaurant. "This isn't technically part of your package," she warned as they climbed into the van, "but I promise it'll be worth it." 3 hours later, the group returned to the ship, buzzing with excitement about their authentic island experience. They had eaten fresh catch prepared in traditional methods, listened to local musicians, and interacted with residents in a way that cruise packages rarely facilitated. "That was the highlight of our entire vacation," declared Mr. Peterson, a retired executive. "Why isn't this on the regular itinerary?" What Amelia didn't notice was Samuel Wilson, a passenger who had joined the impromptu excursion, watching her thoughtfully throughout the evening. He observed how she interacted with locals in their own language, how she created connections that transcended typical tourist local dynamics, how she transformed a simple dinner into a cultural exchange. Back in her cabin after checking on the sleeping twins, Amelia pulled out her worn notebook. Under the heading Exclusive Experiences, she began listing possibilities: private cooking classes with local chefs, intimate concerts with indigenous musicians, dawn fishing trips with generational fishermen, access to private homes and gardens typically closed to tourists. "People want connection, not just consumption," she wrote, underlining the phrase twice. A knock at her door the next morning revealed Samuel Wilson, dressed casually but exuding the quiet confidence of significant wealth. "Miss Walker, might I have a word?" he asked, his voice cultured but unpretentious. They settled in a quiet corner of the deck, the twins playing within eyesight under the watchful gaze of a ship's activity coordinator who adored them. "What you did yesterday wasn't on the itinerary," Wilson began, "but it was by far the best experience of this entire cruise." Amelia tensed slightly, unsure if this was a complaint. "I sometimes supplement the official program when I sense passengers want something more authentic." Wilson smiled. "I'm not here to criticize, quite the opposite." He handed her his business card. "Samuel Wilson, Venture Capital, Horizon Partners." "I don't understand," Amelia said, studying the embossed card. "There's a massive untapped market for what you provided yesterday. Truly exclusive, authentic experiences curated for people who can afford to pay premium prices for something genuine. The ultra-wealthy are increasingly bored with standard luxury. They want something real, but with someone trustworthy navigating the complexities." Amelia's heart raced as she realized where this conversation was heading. "Mr. Wilson, you have vision, Ms. Walker. What you lack is capital and connections. I have both." He leaned forward. "I believe you could build something remarkable." That evening, Amelia called Victor from the ship's satellite phone, her voice trembling with excitement and uncertainty. "It sounds too good to be true," Victor said cautiously after she explained Wilson's interest. "That's what I thought," Amelia admitted. "He wants to invest $500,000 to launch something called Walker Exclusive Experiences, me as CEO." "It's risky," Victor acknowledged. "But Amelia, you're wasting your talent as just a guide. You've been developing these ideas for years." "I have 2 children, Victor. I can't afford to fail. And if you succeed, what could you give those children then?" After hanging up, Amelia watched the twins sleeping peacefully in their bunks. 8 years old now, they were showing more of Ethan in their features every day. Not just the blue eyes, but the shape of Liam's jaw, the curve of Isla's smile. It was both painful and empowering, these constant reminders of the man who had deemed her unworthy of his world. She pulled out photos of the twins, studying their growing faces in the dim cabin light. They deserved every opportunity, every advantage she could provide. But was entrepreneurship too great a risk? The next morning, she found Wilson at breakfast, sitting alone with a newspaper and coffee. "I'd like to hear more," she said simply, sliding into the seat across from him. By the time the cruise returned to Miami, they had outlined the basics of a partnership. Wilson would provide initial funding and business connections. Amelia would develop the concept and lead the operation. 2 weeks later, they met formally in his Boston office. The twins at school for the day. $500,000 initial investment, Wilson confirmed, sliding the business plan across his mahogany desk for 40% equity. Amelia reviewed the terms carefully. She would control 60% of the company, majority ownership, while gaining the capital to launch properly. Her mind raced with possibilities and fears. I have 2 children to support, she said frankly. If this fails, it won't, Wilson interrupted. But to ease your concerns, we'll structure a guaranteed salary for the first 2 years, regardless of profitability, enough to cover your current earnings plus a 20% increase. Tears pricked behind her eyes at this unexpected consideration. Why me? She asked finally. There must be dozens of more experienced entrepreneurs seeking funding. Wilson leaned back in his chair. In 20 years of investing, I've learned to recognize the hunger that drives extraordinary success. You have it. It's in your eyes when you speak about these experiences. When you look at your children, he paused. Someone underestimated you badly in the past, didn't they? Amelia stiffened but didn't reply. Their mistake, Wilson said simply. My opportunity. The documents were signed the following week. That evening, Amelia celebrated with the twins in their small apartment, which suddenly felt too cramped to contain her. Expanding dreams. Mommy's starting her own company, she told them over their special dinner of spaghetti, their favorite. Like Uncle Victor, Liam asked, twirling pasta expertly. Similar but different. We're going to create special travel experiences for people. Can we help? Isla asked immediately. Amelia smiled, her heart full. You already do more than you know. After tucking them in, she sat at her kitchen table with a notepad sketching logos and itineraries. Deep into the night. For the first time since that snow-covered morning, when Ethan's note had shattered her world, Amelia felt truly completely in control of her destiny. While sipping celebratory tea from her chipped mug, planning itineraries that would eventually grace the glossy brochures of the world's most exclusive travel company, Amelia couldn't imagine that within 5 years she would be signing a purchase contract for her first own cruise ship, initiating a fleet that would revolutionize the concept. Luxury tourism. While sipping celebratory tea from her chipped mug, Amelia couldn't have predicted the whirlwind the next 4 years would bring. The modest beginnings of Walker Exclusive Experiences unfolded in a rented desk at a downtown Boston co-working space, where Amelia spent her first official day as CEO, making cold calls to potential clients. Walker Exclusive Experiences. She practiced her voice, gaining confidence with each repetition where luxury meets authenticity. Those early months tested every ounce of her determination. Days stretched into nights as she developed itineraries, established connections with local providers across the Caribbean, and meticulously crafted marketing materials that would appeal to the ultra-wealthy. Her first glossy brochure, produced on a tight budget but designed to exude exclusivity, featured carefully selected images and the tagline, "Experiences that transform." 6 months after founding the company, Amelia led her first official group, 5 millionaires seeking something beyond standard luxury cruises. She had arranged an intimate culinary journey through hidden corners of St. Lucia, featuring private cooking lessons with a renowned local chef whose restaurant had a 2-year waiting list. This, declared Margaret Halloway, the wife of a tech entrepreneur, is what we've been searching for, not another buffet line with towel animals on the bed. The glowing testimonials from that inaugural trip generated invaluable word of mouth in precisely the circles Amelia needed. Penetrate. By the end of their first year, Walker Exclusive Experiences had guided 12 groups, each paying premium prices for bespoke journeys that offered both luxury and cultural immersion. Success, however, came with sacrifices that weighed heavily on Amelia's heart. Her return from the St. Lucia trip revealed the first of many painful moments that would define her dual role as entrepreneur and mother. "Mommy!" the twins shouted in unison as she entered their apartment after 8 days away. They flung themselves into her arms, nearly knocking her over with the force of their enthusiasm. After they settled into bed that night, Maria, the kind elderly neighbor who watched them during Amelia's trips, pulled her aside. "Liam took his first swimming strokes while you were gone. He was so proud and kept saying he couldn't wait to show you." The words pierced Amelia like physical pain. She'd missed a milestone, one of many that would slip past as she built their future. That night, watching her children sleep, she whispered, "It's all for you. Everything is for you." By the time the twins turned 7, Walker Exclusive Experiences had established a reputation among the ultra-wealthy as the gold standard for authentic luxury travel. A feature in NAS Traveler, the new sensation in high-end tourism, included a small photo of Amelia, describing her as the visionary redefining what luxury experiences can be. The article caught the attention of Sophia Martinez, a B-list Grace Leewood actress known for her travel-focused social media presence. Her booking marked Amelia's first celebrity client, opening doors to an entirely new market segment. "My followers are obsessed with your balanced spiritual retreat package," Sophia gushed during her consultation. "The exclusivity, the authenticity, it's exactly what my personal brand needs." The business grew steadily, necessitating Amelia's first hires, 2 assistants and an accountant to manage the increasingly complex finances. When the twins turned 7, revenue had reached a point where Amelia could enroll them in Bridgewater Academy, a prestigious private school in a leafy Boston suburb. On their first day, Liam and Isla stood proudly in their new uniforms, backpacks emblazoned with the school crest dwarfing their small frames. "My mom travels all over the world," Isla announced to her new classmates during introduction time, her chest puffed with pride. The transition wasn't without challenges. At the first parent-teacher conference, Amelia arrived directly from the airport, still in her travel clothes, to find herself surrounded by Bridgewater mothers in designer outfits, discussing their Hamptons houses and household staff. "Oh, you're the twins' mother," one woman remarked, taking in Amelia's practical attire with barely disguised judgment. "They mentioned you're often away." Amelia straightened her spine, channeling the confidence she projected when negotiating with 5-star hotels. "I'm building a global business. My children understand the value of that." As the business approached its 3rd anniversary, Amelia found herself in Bali negotiating with the management of an exclusive clifftop resort. The property wanted to maintain its reputation for privacy and exclusivity, while Amelia pushed for special access for her clients. "My clients expect more than just luxury," she explained to the skeptical manager. "They want authenticity, connection. They want experiences they couldn't access without us." When her phone rang with an international number, she assumed it was a potential client. Instead, it was a representative from Lux Voyages, a corporate travel conglomerate offering $8 million to acquire Walker Exclusive Experiences. "We've been watching your growth with interest," the polished voice explained. "Your approach aligns with our expansion strategy." The offer was tempting, life-changing money that would secure the twins' future and eliminate the financial insecurity that still haunted Amelia's decisions. But something in her rebelled at the thought. "I didn't build this to sell," she told Samuel Wilson during a late-night call from her Baylands villa. "I built it to leave a legacy." Wilson's chuckle carried across the connection. "And that, Amelia, is exactly why your company will eventually be worth 10 times their offer." By the company's 4th year, its valuation had reached $15 million, with reinvested profits and a second round of funding from Wilson and new investors. Amelia began planning her most audacious move yet, approaching Victor Santos about acquiring Sunshine Cruises. The meeting took place in the modest office where she had once organized filing cabinets as an administrative assistant. Victor, now in his 60s, listened thoughtfully as Amelia outlined her proposal. "You'd be buying your old boss out," he mused, a smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "I'd be bringing my mentor in as a partner," she corrected. As Chief Operations Officer of the expanded Walker Experiences, the signing ceremony was emotional for both of them. As Victor passed her the pen to finalize the acquisition, Amelia's hand trembled slightly. "From the moment you walked in here, pregnant and desperate, I knew you were special," Victor said quietly. "But even I couldn't have imagined this." With the acquisition came resources that allowed Amelia to finally move the family from their modest Dorchester apartment. The house she purchased in Newton wasn't ostentatious, but with 4 bedrooms, a small garden, and a quiet street perfect for bike riding, it represented a quantum leap in their quality of life. The twins, now almost 8, raced through the rooms on moving day, marveling at having their own bedrooms for the first time. "Mom, my room has a window seat," Isla called, her voice echoing in the still empty space. Mine has built-in bookshelves, Liam countered, already mentally organizing his growing collection. That evening, after the moving trucks had departed and a pizza dinner had been enjoyed on the floor of their unfurnished dining room, Amelia unpacked a box labeled personal. Inside was a photo she kept hidden for years herself at 23, heavily pregnant, sitting on a bench outside the women's shelter. The image was a reminder of how far they'd come. She tucked the photo into a drawer of her new desk, whispering to herself, "Never forget where we started." Later that night, standing on the back porch of their new home, Amelia gazed at the Boston skyline, visible in the distance. The lights of the city glittered against the night sky, beautiful and cold. Somewhere in that constellation of buildings was the Grayson Industries headquarters, where Ethan presumably still worked, living the life his family had ordained for him. "We're just getting started," she whispered to the night air, her breath forming a small cloud in the autumn chill. Looking at the lights of Boston from the porch of her new home, Amelia didn't imagine that in just 3 years she would be looking at that same city from the penthouse of a skyscraper, housing her global company's headquarters only a mile from the Grayson Industries building. Looking at the lights of Boston from the porch of her new home, Amelia didn't imagine that in just 3 years she would be looking at that same city from the penthouse of a skyscraper, housing her global company's headquarters. Yet by early 2017, that's exactly where she stood. 40 floors above the city she once wandered, homeless, pregnant, and abandoned. The fourth quarter projections exceed our targets by 22%. Amelia announced to her executive board, a confident CEO commanding the attention of seasoned business veterans twice her age. The floor-to-ceiling windows of the conference room offered a panoramic view of Boston, including, she couldn't help but notice the distinctive silhouette of the Grayson Industries building a few blocks away. At 31, Amelia had transformed Walker Exclusive Experiences into Walker Global Experiences, a conglomerate operating luxury tourism ventures across 4 continents. The transition from boutique experience curator to global hospitality power had accelerated after a bold acquisition that shocked the industry. Her purchase of the struggling Seabourn Luxury, a small yacht operator with 3 vessels that needed visionary leadership. The New Horizon will be ready for its maiden voyage next month. Victor Santos reported, now serving as COO of the expanded company. The renovations are complete and bookings are at 94% capacity. The naming ceremony for that first ship, previously a tired luxury yacht that Amelia had completely reimagined, marked a pivotal moment. Under slate-gay skis at Boston Harbor, she stood before invited guests and press, champagne bottle in hand. "We christen this vessel the New Horizon," she declared, her voice steady despite the emotion swelling in her chest. The twins, now 10 years old, watched proudly from the front row as their mother smashed the bottle against the gleaming hull. That evening, alone in her office, Amelia opened an email containing the twins' latest school report. Their academic achievements continued to astonish their teachers. Liam showing mathematical aptitude that placed him 4 years ahead of grade level. Isla demonstrating linguistic gifts that had her speaking French with near-native fluency. Pride mingled with a familiar pang of guilt as she noted the parent-teacher conferences she'd missed, the school play where Victor had sat in her place. The price of building their future was missing pieces of their present. The following week, returning home past midnight from a business trip, Amelia found Liam still awake, the glow of his laptop illuminating his features, so similar to Ethan's that sometimes it took her breath away. "You should be asleep," she chided gently, kissing the top of his head. "I wanted to show you something," he replied, spinning his laptop toward her. "I wrote a program that optimizes shipping routes based on weather patterns and fuel consumption." Amelia stared at the complex code on the screen written by her 10-year-old son. "Liam, this is incredible. I used the data from your Caribbean routes," he explained, his blue eyes, Ethan's eyes bright with excitement. "It could save about 14% on fuel costs if you implemented it." 2 days later, Amelia hosted potential Japanese investors for dinner at her home. As the adults discussed partnership opportunities, Isla casually joined the conversation in flawless Japanese, having taught herself basics of the language using online resources. "Your daughter is remarkable," Mr. Tanaka commented, visibly impressed. Such natural facility with languages is extremely rare. These moments of brilliance only reinforced Amelia's determination to provide every opportunity for her children. Opportunities that would have been their birthright had Ethan not discarded them all like unwanted baggage. By mid-2018, Walker Global Experiences had expanded to 50 employees occupying 3 floors of their Boston headquarters. The inauguration of the company's permanent home drew regional business press, including a profile in the Boston section of Forbes. From chambermaid to CEO, the extraordinary journey of Amelia Walker. The journalist, a perceptive woman in her 40s, asked the question Amelia had successfully dodged for years. "Your twins are 10 now. Their father isn't in the picture." Amelia maintained her practiced smile. "I'm both mother and father to my children. They want for nothing." That evening, scanning business news before bed, a headline caught her eye. "Grayson Cat marriage ends in high-profile divorce." The accompanying article detailed the messy separation of Ethan Grayson from Vanessa Cat after 7 years of marriage. With rumors of infidelity and disputes over considerable assets, Amelia felt a complicated surge of emotions. Not satisfaction exactly, but a certain vindicating justice in knowing that the perfect match his family had engineered had failed spectacularly. She closed the browser, refusing to give him even a minute more of her attention. As her wealth grew, her personal net worth now estimated at over $60 million, Amelia established the New Horizons Foundation, dedicated to supporting single mothers pursuing education and entrepreneurship. The foundation's launch event held at the Boston Public Library featured 5 women who had received its inaugural grants. For these mothers to succeed, they shouldn't have to choose between their dreams and their children. Amelia stated in her opening speech, "Our mission is to ensure they never have to make that impossible choice." After the ceremony, she visited the South End Women's Shelter where she had once stayed while pregnant with the twins. Now renovated with funds from her foundation, the facility offered private family rooms, career counseling, and child care services. "You've changed my life," whispered Maria Delgado, the foundation's first scholarship recipient, tears streaming down her face as she introduced Amelia to her 4-year-old son. "He's going to grow up watching his mother graduate college because of you." The following spring brought new challenges, as Amelia presented an ambitious expansion plan to her board and investors. The predominantly male group questioned her strategy to acquire a small luxury airline service. "This represents a 30% increase in operational complexity," objected Ronald Harrington, a veteran investor. "The hospitality industry and aviation have different regulatory environments entirely." Amelia remained poised, commanding the room with quiet authority. "Gentlemen, controlling the entire guest journey from departure to return is the logical next step in our vertical integration. The numbers speak for themselves." She gestured to the projection showing projected 5-year returns. Any other questions? The plan was approved unanimously. When the twins turned 11, they were invited to join the prestigious Young Innovators program at MIT, a weekend enrichment course for exceptionally gifted children. The opportunity created new logistical challenges. The program coincided with Amelia's scheduled negotiations in Dubai for a partnership with an Emirates luxury hotel chain. "I'll reschedule Dubai," she told the twins immediately, despite knowing the potential business impact. "Mom, we LL be fine," Liam insisted with a maturity beyond his years. "Uncle Victor can take us. You built this company for us, remember?" His words meant to reassure pierced her heart. Yes, she had built it for them, but at what cost? In moments lost. By the fall of 2020, Walker Global Experiences had acquired its 3rd vessel, established partnerships with luxury resorts across 5 continents, and launched a premium travel app valued at $40 million. The company now employed over 200 people worldwide with offices in Boston, London, Singapore, and Dubai. Amelia's penthouse apartment in back bay offered sweeping views of the city, including, she noted with irony, the park bench where she had once sat homeless and pregnant, contemplating her shattered future. Now at 34, she was featured on regional lists of most powerful business women and had been invited to speak at her alma mater's commencement ceremony. From her bedroom window, she could also see the Grayson Industries building illuminated against the night sky. According to Business News, Ethan had taken over as CEO following his father's retirement, aggressively expanding the company's real estate developments along the eastern seaboard. Sometimes in quiet moments like this, Amelia allowed herself to imagine a chance encounter at an industry event perhaps, or a charity gala. What would she say to the man who had discarded her? Would he even recognize the powerful, wealthy woman she had become? Would he see his own eyes reflected in the children he had never known? Observing the Grayson Industries building from the window of her penthouse, Amelia didn't know that. In 4 years, she would be face to face with the man who had abandoned her in a confrontation that would forever change the power balance between them. Observing the Grayson Industries building from the window of her penthouse, Amelia turned away from the sight that still stirred complicated emotions. Her phone vibrated with an incoming video call. Liam and Isla checking in from Phillips Academy, Andover, the prestigious boarding school where they were thriving as 14-year-old sophomores. "Mom, did you see what we sent?" Liam's face filled the screen, his blue eyes, so disturbingly like his father's, alight with excitement. "Give me a chance to explain it." Isla nudged her twin aside, the two of them jostling for position in the frame. "I translated the presentation into Mandarin for the Hong Kong investors." Amelia smiled, settling onto her Italian leather sofa. At 14, the twins had blossomed into extraordinary young people. Their acceptance to Andover on merit scholarships had been both a triumph and a bittersweet milestone, marking the first time they lived away from home. "I just opened the file," Amelia assured them, pulling up the document on her tablet. "But explain it to me anyway." Liam launched into an explanation of his latest algorithm, a sophisticated route optimization program that used machine learning to predict weather patterns and passenger preferences to create the most efficient and profitable cruise itineraries. At 14, he spoke with the confidence and knowledge of someone twice his age, his mathematical brilliance exceeding even his prestigious school's advanced curriculum. "The simulation shows we could reduce operational costs by 17% while improving guest satisfaction ratings," he concluded. "I already showed it to the head of the mathematics department, and he thinks it could qualify for the national science competition." "That's incredible, Liam," Amelia said, genuine pride warming her voice. "We'll implement it for the spring season." "Planning, and my part was making sure it would work for our Asian markets," Isla added. Not to be outdone by her brother. Now fluent in 5 languages, English, Spanish, French, Mandarin, and Portuguese, she had become what Victor Santos jokingly called the company's junior ambassador, occasionally accompanying Amelia on international trips during school breaks to charm foreign partners with her linguistic abilities and poised presence. After promising to fly up for Liam's upcoming math competition, Amelia ended the call, momentarily silent in her empty penthouse. She built all this for them, the global enterprise valued at over $2 billion, the fleet of luxury vessels, the international reputation. Yet sometimes the physical distance felt like a high price to pay. The following week, Amelia sat in the audience at Phillips Academy's scientific symposium, watching as Liam presented his algorithm to a room full of impressed faculty and students. His confidence at the podium reminded her painfully of Ethan during the early days of their relationship. The same authoritative stance, the same elegant gestures as he explained complex concepts. "Mom built this company without any help," Isla whispered fiercely to a classmate seated nearby who had asked about their family background. "She taught us that nobody can define our value except ourselves." The pride that swelled in Amelia's chest was tinged with the knowledge that she'd never directly told the twins about their father's abandonment. They knew only that he wasn't ready to be a father and had chosen a different path. Carefully constructed half-truths that protected them from the full cruelty of his rejection. Later that evening, in Isla's dormitory room, decorated with photos of family vacations and global landmarks, her daughter broached the subject that Amelia had long dreaded. "Why do we never talk about our father?" Isla asked quietly, sitting cross-legged on her bed, twisting a silver bracelet around her wrist, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. Amelia measured her response carefully. "I've told you what happened. He wasn't ready for family responsibilities. But that's so vague," Isla persisted. "Was he a bad person? Did he die? Is he still in Boston? We're 14 now. Don't we deserve the whole truth?" The questions hung in the air between them, and Amelia felt the familiar tightness in her chest whenever Ethan's ghost threatened to materialize in their lives. "He made choices that hurt us deeply," she finally said. "And I've spent 14 years ensuring those choices didn't define your lives or opportunities." Back in Boston, Liam was conducting his own investigation. In the school's digital library, he searched prominent Boston business families for a history project, scrolling through images until he froze at a photo that made his heart race. The man pictured at a charity gala, Damon Grayson, CEO of Grayson Industries, had his eyes, exactly his eyes, the same jawline that Liam saw every morning in the mirror. He stared at the image for long minutes, connecting dots that had been scattered throughout his life. His mother's careful vagueness about their father, her occasional tense expression when they passed certain Boston landmarks, the absence of any extended family on their father's side. Liam didn't mention his discovery to Isla or his mother. Instead, he began quietly researching Ethan Grayson, learning about Grayson Industries' real estate empire, about Ethan's divorce 7 years earlier, about his recent expansion into port development along the eastern seaboard. Meanwhile, preparations for the launch of Walker Global Experience's newest and most ambitious vessel, the Infinity Experience, consumed Amelia's days and nights. Standing in the Ship Design Center at company headquarters, she reviewed the final plans with her executive team. "The Infinity will redefine ultra-luxury cruising," she told them, surveying the detailed model of the $1.2 billion vessel. "This isn't just a ship. It's a statement about who we are and what we've become." Victor. Santos nodded in agreement. From a small desk in a co-working space to this, he mused, quite a journey. The launch event scheduled for March in Miami would gather industry leaders, celebrities, major investors, and government officials. Amelia's public relations team had been planning for months, securing coverage from international media and coordinating with port authorities for what promised to be the maritime event of the year. The final VIP guest list has arrived. Miss Walker, her assistant announced, placing a thick folder on her desk. "The governor has confirmed his attendance along with 3 senators and the Secretary of Commerce." Amelia flipped distractedly through the pages, mentally rehearsing her keynote speech rather than focusing on the names. Her mind was on the big picture, the culmination of 15 years of relentless work, the ultimate validation of her vision. "Let's review the event schedule one more time," she said, turning to the next section of the briefing materials without noticing the name that appeared on page 17 of the guest list. Ethan Grayson, CEO Grayson Industries, representing the development consortium responsible for Miami's privatized port terminals. That weekend, Amelia made a rare personal pilgrimage, visiting her mother's grave in a quiet cemetery outside Boston. Eleanor Walker had passed away 5 years earlier, having reconciled with her daughter, but never fully comprehending the scale of what Amelia had built. "I've created something that will last generations." "Mom," she said softly, placing fresh flowers against the simple headstone. "The twins are thriving at the same school that educated presidents. Everything you worried about when I met Ethan, that I'd lose myself, that I'd be defined by rejection, none of it happened." The following morning, Amelia reviewed a business news report about Grayson Industries' aggressive expansion into port terminal development along the southeast coast. The accompanying photo showed Ethan at a ribbon cutting ceremony, looking distinguished at 42 with touches of gray at his temples, but still recognizably the man who had once promised to love her forever. She closed the browser tab without reading further. His business movements only concerned her insofar as they might intersect with her industry, nothing more. That evening, from her master bathroom with its panoramic city views, Amelia conducted her nightly video call with the twins. They appeared together in the frame, Isla's dark curls contrasting with Liam's straighter hair, both of them flushed with excitement about the upcoming Miami event. "Are you ready for the big day tomorrow?" she asked, noting how grown-up they looked in their Andover sweatshirts, how the childish roundness of their faces had begun to sharpen into the more defined features of adolescence. "We were born ready, Mom." Liam replied with a confident smile that, though Amelia wouldn't admit it, even to herself, had always reminded her of Ethan. After ending the call, she stood at her bedroom window, gazing out at the Boston skyline that had witnessed both her greatest humiliation and her extraordinary rise. Tomorrow, she would fly to Miami, and the day after would mark the culmination of 15 years of unrelenting work and ambition. While Amelia drifted off to sleep on the eve of her departure for Miami, she remained unaware of the name that would change everything on the last page of the guest list. The man who had abandoned her pregnant would be present at the greatest moment of her professional triumph, about to discover the children he never knew. While Amelia drifted off to sleep on the eve of her departure for Miami, the name buried on page 17 of her guest list remained unnoticed, like a landmine waiting for an unsuspecting step. The universe, it seemed, had been quietly arranging this collision for 14 years. The following morning dawned crisp and clear in Boston. Amelia's private helicopter lifted from the rooftop helipad of Walker Global Headquarters, carrying her toward Logan International, where the company's Gulfstream G650 waited. Throughout the 2-hour flight to Miami, she reviewed her keynote speech, making minor adjustments to phrases while her assistant finalized last-minute details for tomorrow's launch. "The Secretary of Commerce is requesting 5 minutes with you before the ceremony," her assistant noted, scrolling through emails. "And the governor wants a photo opportunity during the champagne toast." "Accommodate both," Amelia replied without looking up from her tablet. "And make sure the twins' arrival from Andover goes smoothly. Their flight lands at 4. Miami greeted them with brilliant sunshine and the scent of salt air. A convoy of black SUVs whisked Amelia to the Terminal Portuario Premium, where the Infinity Experience waited majestic against the turquoise waters. At 1,200 FT, with 12 passenger decks of unprecedented luxury, the vessel represented not just the pinnacle of cruise engineering, but the culmination of Amelia's extraordinary journey from abandoned bride to industry titan. Security perimeter is established. Red carpet is in place, and the first press representatives have already arrived, the event director reported as they toured the entry pavilion. "We're expecting approximately 200 photographers and videographers." "Perfect." Amelia nodded, mentally rehearsing her entrance. Every detail had been carefully planned, from the precise shade of white of her custom Valentino dress to the subtle diamond jewelry that would catch the light, without appearing ostentatious. By 9:00 the next morning, the terminal buzzed with activity. Celebrities, business leaders, and politicians mingled in the VIP reception area, while security managed the growing press contingent. Liam and Isla, impeccable in matching navy blue suits personally selected by Amelia's stylist, waited with Victor in a private room adjacent to the arrival area. Remember, Amelia instructed them during a final check, adjusting Isla's collar. "Walk 3 steps behind me, smile." Naturally for photos, but no interviews without my presence. The twins nodded in synchrony. At 14, they had attended enough high-profile events to understand the protocol, though none as significant as today's launch. At precisely 10:00, the first of 3 limousines in Amelia's motorcade glided to a stop at the beginning of the red carpet. Security personnel moved into position as the crowd of photographers surged forward. When Amelia emerged, a vision in white against the Miami sunshine, camera. Flashes exploded in a frenzy. "Miss Walker, over here. Amelia, this way. Can you comment on the vessel's environmental innovations?" She moved with practiced grace, acknowledging the press with warm smiles but reserving her words for the official remarks to come. The twins followed, drawing their own share of attention. Their striking resemblance to their mother, combined with those distinctive blue eyes, made them natural subjects for the society photographers. From an elevated platform, the master of ceremonies announced with theatrical flair, "Ladies and gentlemen, the woman who revolutionized the concept of maritime luxury, the CEO whose vision transformed a small travel agency into a global conglomerate valued at nearly $3 billion, Amelia Walker." Applause thundered across the terminal as Amelia ascended the steps to the stage. Below her, the assembled crowd represented the pinnacle of American wealth and influence: tech billionaires, entertainment moguls, political power brokers, and industry leaders. With the magnificent Infinity experience as her backdrop, she approached the microphone, commanding the moment with quiet authority. "Distinguished guests, valued partners, members of the press," she began, her voice strong and clear. "Today marks not just the launch of a vessel, but the realization of a vision that began in circumstances that many would have considered impossible." As she continued her carefully crafted address, movement at the side of the stage caught her peripheral vision. A late arrival was being discreetly ushered to a reserved seat in the front row. Without breaking her rhythm, Amelia glanced briefly toward the disturbance and felt the world suddenly tilt beneath her feet. Ethan Grayson, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, was being seated directly in her line of sight. Beside him sat a slender woman who must be his second wife, though Amelia barely registered her presence. For a suspended moment that seemed to stretch into infinity, their eyes locked across the crowded space. 14 years vanished in an instant. The young man who had written those cruel words was now middle-aged, his temples touched with gray lines etched around his eyes, yet unmistakably Ethan. His expression shifted from polite interest to shock as recognition dawned, followed by confusion as he glanced from Amelia to the twins standing at the side of the stage. "And so it is with immense pride," Amelia continued after a microsecond pause that only she perceived, "that I present the new standard in maritime experiences, a vision realized through determination, innovation, and the extraordinary team at Walker Global Experiences." She completed her speech flawlessly, her professional training overriding the emotional earthquake rumbling beneath her composed exterior. As applause erupted again, she caught the exact moment when Ethan's gaze shifted from her to Liam, then to Isla, and back again. The precise instant when mathematics and genetics collided in his mind, when 14 years and two matching sets of blue eyes aligned into undeniable truth. The ceremonial ribbon cutting proceeded according to plan. Amelia, flanked by the governor of Florida and the twins, wielded the oversized golden scissors with a smile that revealed nothing of the storm raging inside her. As champagne corks popped and photographers jostled for the perfect shot, she maintained a careful orbit that kept maximum distance between herself and the man who had once shattered her world. During the reception that followed, Amelia moved through the crowd with practiced ease, accepting congratulations and fielding questions from important stakeholders. All the while, she remained acutely aware of Ethan's position in the room, tracking him through her peripheral vision like prey monitoring a predator. Inevitably, their paths converged near the scale model of the Infinity experience displayed in the center of the Grand Salon. Amelia was explaining the vessel's sustainable energy systems to the Secretary of Commerce when she felt his presence before she heard his voice. "M. Walker, forgive my intrusion." She turned with perfect composure to face the man she had once believed would be her husband, the father of her children. Up close, Ethan appeared simultaneously confident and discomforted, wealth and privilege still emanating from him like a cologne. yet something uncertain flickering in his eyes. "I had no idea that you are the owner of Walker Global," he continued, his voice lower than the surrounding conversation. "It's quite remarkable." "Mr. Grayson," she replied, her tone arctic despite the Miami heat. "Surely there are more interesting people to converse with at this event." He stepped closer, lowering his voice further. "Those young people with you there, my children." "Yes," she interrupted, maintaining eye contact with a coldness that belied the fire in her veins. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have guests to attend to." Before he could respond, Liam and Isla approached from across the room, their radar for their mother's well-being finely tuned. After years as her closest companions. "Mom," Isla said, eyeing Ethan with instinctive suspicion, "the governor is asking about the Mediterranean expansion project." Amelia watched something crumble behind Ethan's eyes as he stared at the teenagers, the living embodiment of what he had discarded, of possibilities forever lost. "Liam, Isla," she said with mechanical formality. "This is Mr. Grayson of Grayson Industries. He's responsible for the port terminals we utilize." Recognition flashed across Ethan's face like lightning. Sudden, devastating, illuminating everything in harsh clarity. He stood paralyzed before the teenagers who were undeniably his children. The same eyes, the same determined chin, the same regal posture. Liam especially was like looking into a mirror of his past. How old are you?" Damon asked, his voice barely audible above the reception's ambient noise. 14, Liam answered directly, his analytical mind immediately sensing something strange in the interaction. "Do you know our mother from before?" The tension shattered with the announcement that the exclusive VIP tour of the Infinity Experience would commence in 5 minutes. Amelia seized the opportunity to guide the twins away, leaving Ethan visibly shaken in their wake. For the next 2 hours, as she led important guests through the vessel's luxurious amenities, Amelia remained hyper-aware of Ethan's presence at the periphery of each group, watching her. And the twins with an expression of growing torment. During her presentation of the financial projections in the ship's main auditorium, she noticed him in the back row, mentally calculating, adding years, connecting dates, assembling the pieces of a puzzle whose picture revealed his greatest failure. While guiding important guests through the luxurious vessel, Amelia felt Damon's gaze following every movement of her and the twins, knowing that the confrontation she had avoided for 14 years was now not only inevitable but imminent and would happen before the cameras of America's social and business elite. While guiding important guests through the luxurious vessel, Amelia felt Ethan's gaze following every movement of her and the twins. The weight of his stare grew heavier as the afternoon progressed, a presence as tangible as the polished teak beneath her feet. By the time the final event, a sunset cocktail reception on the private upper deck, began, the confrontation she had avoided for 14 years seemed as inevitable as the tide. Amelia positioned herself strategically near the ship's railing, glass of champagne barely touched in her hand, keeping Liam and Isla engaged with important investors across the deck. The Miami sunset painted the sky in dramatic oranges and pinks, a beautiful backdrop for what she knew would be an ugly scene. She sensed Damon's approach before she saw him, a shift in the air, a prickling awareness that had never quite disappeared despite the years and distance. When she turned, he stood, closer than propriety allowed, his face flushed with what might have been emotion or alcohol, probably both. "We need to talk." His voice carried a slight slur that confirmed her suspicion about the alcohol. Now Amelia glanced pointedly at the space between them, then stepped back. "This isn't the moment nor the place, Mr. Grayson. They're my children." The words tumbled out with raw intensity, loud enough that a nearby couple glanced their way. "Why did you never tell me about them?" "I did tell." Amelia kept her voice low but firm, years of boardroom confrontations having perfected her ability to convey controlled fury. "I called your office when I discovered the pregnancy. Your number blocked me. Your lawyer suggested I was lying and trying to extort you." Ethan shook his head, confusion warring with anger on his face. "I never knew about any calls. Margaret, my mother, controlled everything back then, but I would have what?" Amelia cut him off, her composure slipping for the first time. You would have what, Ethan? Stayed out of obligation. Let's not rewrite history. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a glacial whisper. You made your choice perfectly clear with your note. Someone who will never be accepted in my world. Remember writing those words. Ethan palled, the cruel phrases from 14 years ago returning to haunt him in his own handwriting. Around them, several guests had discreetly pulled out their smartphones, sensing the tension and capturing what appeared to be an intense conversation between the famous CEO and an unidentified man. I was young, stupid, pressured by my family, he said, desperation edging into his voice. If I had known about the twins, what? Amelia's laugh held no humor. You would have done the right thing, been a father. She gestured broadly at the magnificent vessel around them. Look around you, Ethan. This ship worth $1.2 billion is just one of my assets. My company is worth more than Halt Industries. My children attend the same elite school you did. I built all of this while you were living your privileged destiny. His eyes widened at this assessment, the truth of their reversed fortunes finally sinking in. The chimera he had discarded now commanded an empire that dwarfed his family business. The woman deemed unworthy of his world had created her own, more magnificent one. The conversation grew more heated as Ethan pressed forward, his words increasingly desperate. Neither noticed the twins approaching until Isla's voice cut through their tension. Mom, her tone held concern and suspicion. Is everything okay? Amelia turned to find both teenagers watching the interaction with weary expressions. Liam's analytical gaze moved between his mother and Ethan, clearly calculating probabilities and connections. Everything's fine, Amelia assured them, though her tight smile betrayed the lie. Who is he? Liam asked directly, his inherited perception from both parents cutting through pretense. Ethan stared at the twins with naked emotion. 14 years of absence compressed into a single overwhelming moment of recognition. I need to talk to you both, he said, his voice unsteady. There's something important you should know. Mr. Grayson was just leaving, Amelia interjected firmly. No, Damon insisted, emboldened by alcohol and desperation. They deserve to know who I am. I'm your nobody, Amelia cut in, her voice sharp as a blade. You are nobody to them. The confrontation escalated as Vanessa Grayson approached her, expression transitioning from social politeness to confusion as she observed her husband's agitated state. Ethan, she questioned, placing a manicured hand on his arm. What's going on here? The moment hung suspended, a crystal goblet teetering at the edge of a table. Amelia measured her next words carefully, aware of the smartphone still discreetly recording, of the hundreds of influential witnesses surrounding them, of the children whose world she had so carefully constructed, now trembling on the precipice of irrevocable change. Ask your husband about Boston, December 2010, she suggested, her voice calm, but carrying enough to be heard by those nearest. Ask about the camera he abandoned at the altar, and ask especially why he's so interested in my 14-year-old twins. The silence that followed her words was absolute, a vacuum that seemed to suck all ambient sound from the deck. Vanessa's expression shifted from confusion to dawning horror as she looked from Ethan to the twins, noticing for the first time the unmistakable resemblance. Those Halt blue eyes replicated perfectly in the teenagers' faces. Ethan stood frozen, trapped between his past and present, his gaze moving desperately between his wife, Amelia, and the children he had never known. Around them, the whispered ripple of gossip began spreading through the crowd, phones capturing each moment of the unfolding drama. Are they? Vanessa couldn't finish the question, her voice strangled. They're my children, Ethan admitted, the words emerging broken and raw. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. The confession exploded across the deck. Liam took an involuntary step backward as though physically struck by the revelation. Isla's hand found her mother's arm, gripping it with sudden, desperate strength. What did you just say? Liam demanded, his voice cracking with adolescent emotion. Amelia moved protectively toward her children, but the damage was done. 14 years of carefully constructed narrative crumbled in an instant, leaving the raw truth exposed like a nerve. This man, she announced loud enough to be heard by the stunned onlookers, is Ethan Grayson, who abandoned me on our wedding day when I was 6 weeks pregnant. The man who, through his family, made me lose my job and housing. The man who never in 14 years sought to know if I and the baby he suspected I carried were alive or dead. The words landed like physical blows. Smartphones captured every syllable, every expression. Executives, celebrities, and journalists observed in shocked silence as the scene unfolded like a Shakespearean tragedy on the deck of the world's most luxurious cruise ship. Ethan's face had drained of all color, the full implications of the public revelation dawning on him. His carefully maintained image, the reputation rebuilt after his divorce scandal, the business relationships with many in attendance, all were imploding in real time. "Amelia, please," he begged, aware of his public execution happening by the second. "We can talk about this privately. I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," she replied with quiet dignity. 14 years ago, you made your decision. Today, you're simply meeting the consequences." Vanessa backed away, her expression hardened into a mask of humiliation and fury. Nearby guests pretended to look elsewhere while capturing every moment on their devices. The twins stood shell-shocked, the foundations of their identities visibly cracking beneath this seismic revelation. "Mom," Isla whispered, her voice small and lost. "Is this true?" Before Amelia could answer, the ship's captain approached, sensing disaster and attempting damage control. "Miss Walker, the fireworks display is scheduled to begin in 5 minutes. Perhaps we should guide the guests to the viewing area." The mundane interruption broke the spell of the confrontation. With a single measured nod, Amelia turned to follow the captain, guiding her stunned children away from the man who had fathered them. Ethan remained frozen place, watching them retreat, the full weight of 14 years of absence crushing down upon him as smartphones captured his devastation for the world to witness. While smartphones captured each word of the revelation, no one in the luxurious party could predict that the video of the confrontation would become viral in the next hours, causing an earthquake in Grayson Industries stock and transforming Amelia Walker from successful businesswoman into a symbol of female resilience for millions of people around the world. While smartphones captured each word of the revelation, the aftermath unfolded with the swift brutality of the digital age. By dawn the following morning, Amelia's phone buzzed incessantly with notifications as the hashtag Grayson Walker saga dominated every social platform. The confrontation, filmed from multiple angles, had been viewed over 20 million times in less than 12 hours. Business channels ran continuous coverage, their chyrons alternating between abandoned pregnant bride, becomes billionaire CEO, and Grayson Air's secret children revealed in luxury launch disaster. In her suite at the Four Seasons Miami, Amelia assembled her crisis management team, while the twins sat silently on the sofa, still processing the revelation that had shattered their understanding of their origins. Bloomberg just published a special report. Her PR director reported tablet in hand. From abandonment to empire, how Amelia Walker overcame rejection to build a billion-dollar fortune. "It's actually quite positive." "I don't care about the press," Amelia replied, her eyes fixed on her children. "What matters is how this affects Liam and Isla." The twins had barely spoken since the previous night's explosive confrontation. Now Liam looked up, his blue eyes, Ethan's eyes, filled with hurt and confusion. "Why did you never tell us who he was?" he asked, his voice wavering between childlike vulnerability and teenage indignation. "All these years thinking our father was someone who had died or just disappeared." Amelia moved to sit between them, taking their hands in hers. "I protected you from what I considered the more painful truth that he chose not to be part of our lives." Her voice caught. "Maybe that was wrong, but everything I've done, every decision I've made was thinking about your well-being." Isla leaned against her mother's shoulder, tears streaking her cheeks. "Did he really abandon you when you were pregnant with us?" Before Amelia could answer, her assistant interrupted with urgent news. The Halt industry stock has fallen 17% in the first hour of trading. Walker Global is up 8%. CNBC is reporting that the HOL board has called an emergency meeting to discuss the PR crisis. The news hung in the air, a stark testament to how completely the balance of power had shifted. 14 years ago, the Graysons had wielded their influence to destroy Amelia's modest life. Now a single confrontation threatened the empire that had seemed so untouchable. M. Walker, the assistant, added. Hesitantly, Mr. Grayson is in the lobby. He insists on speaking with you and the twins. The room fell silent. After a brief family consultation, Amelia nodded. Send him up, but stay close. Ethan entered the presidential suite looking nothing like the polished executive from the previous evening. His designer suit was rumpled, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his normally perfect hair showed signs of restless hands running through it repeatedly. He carried a leather portfolio under one arm. Before anything else, he began, his voice. I came to apologize. I have no justifications for what I did. I was young, cowardly, and manipulated by my family, but the final decision was mine. He placed the portfolio on the coffee table, opening it to reveal legal documents. I've established a trust fund for Liam and Isla, $300 million, Grayson Industries stock properties in Massachusetts and Florida. It's the least I can do to compensate for the years lost. Liam stared at the documents, then looked up with his father's blue eyes hardened by his mother's determination. We don't need your money, he said coldly. Our mother gave us everything we needed, including what can't be bought, Isla added, her chin lifting in a gesture reminiscent of Amelia. Character, determination, example. Ethan seemed to age a decade as he absorbed their rejection. He sank into a chair, his shoulders slumping. You have every right to hate me, but I'd like to know you somehow be part of your lives. Why? Amelia's question cut through the room. To ease your guilt, to improve your image. Your company's stock is plummeting. Your second marriage is probably in ruins after the scandal, and now you want the comfort of a family you abandoned. Before Ethan could respond, breaking news alerts chimed simultaneously on multiple devices. Margaret Grayson, now 75, had given an exclusive interview defending her son and attacking Amelia, calling her an opportunist who deliberately got pregnant to capture the Grayson fortune. The reactions online were immediate and devastating for the Graysons. Anonymous sources began leaking old photos of Amelia sleeping in shelters while pregnant, testimonials from people who had known her during that time, and documents proving her attempts to contact Ethan. History repeats itself, Amelia observed bitterly. The Grayson dynasty once again trying to destroy me with lies. My mother doesn't speak for me, Ethan said, visibly distressed. I'll make a public statement taking full responsibility and contradicting her claims. Over the following days, the family drama played out on an international stage. Ethan, against his lawyer's advice, gave a candid interview to CNN, admitting his mistakes, praising Amelia's extraordinary journey, and expressing hope of someday knowing his children. Vanessa announced their separation. The Grayson Industries board voted for Ethan's temporary leave of absence as CEO. 2 weeks after the incident, Amelia received an invitation to dinner at Ethan's childhood home in Beacon Hill. After consulting with the twins, who expressed cautious curiosity about their biological father, she accepted. The dinner was tense but civil. Margaret Grayson was notably absent, traveling indefinitely in Europe, according to Ethan. In the rooms that once represented everything denied to her, Amelia observed family photos, trophies, and mementos of a privileged life. I've lost everything that really matters, Ethan confessed over coffee. The company my father built is on the verge of collapse after the scandal. My second marriage ended as disastrously as the first, and worst of all, I lost the chance to see my children grow up. You didn't lose something you never valued, Amelia replied without rancor, simply stating a fact. But Liam and Isla deserve to know their complete story, including you if they wish. In the weeks that followed, a careful arrangement was established. The twins agreed to fortnightly meetings with Ethan, always on their terms and initially in Amelia's presence. The trust fund was restructured as a charitable foundation administered by the teenagers to support single mothers in vulnerable situations. The twins' own suggestion. 6 months after the Miami incident, on the eve of launching another vessel in the Walker fleet, Amelia contemplated the ocean horizon from her presidential suite. A notification on her phone showed Walker Global Experience stock hitting a new record, pushing her personal fortune closer to $1 billion. Another notification appeared, a message from Ethan with a photo of him and the twins at a Red Sox game, all three smiling tentatively. "Thank you for allowing these moments," the message read. Amelia didn't respond immediately. Instead, she opened her photo gallery and scrolled to an image kept for 15 years. Herself, pregnant and alone, sleeping in a Boston shelter. The journey from that desperate woman to the billionaire CEO seemed almost mythological. Finally, she typed, "They are extraordinary not because they're your children or my children. They're extraordinary because they are themselves forged by both absence and presence." On the lower deck of the ship, Liam and Isla proudly explored the newest addition to the fleet they would someday inherit. Confident young people carrying the legacy not of abandonment, but of monumental triumph. Amelia put away her phone and watched the sunset over the ocean. Revenge had never been her goal. Building something magnificent had. While Ethan had lost an empire, she had built her own, larger and more meaningful. There was no more anger, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that the greatest punishment for the man who had abandoned her wasn't the public humiliation or financial losses, but the simple fact that in the end she no longer needed him for absolutely anything. Amelia Walker's true victory wasn't in the explosive confrontation in Miami, but in each day of the past 15 years when she refused to be defined by abandonment, choosing instead to be the author of her own extraordinary story. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen. Thank you for being part of the Mr. Anderson Stories community. Your support makes these stories possible. Stay inspired, stay strong, and remember that every ending is the beginning of something new.